The ability to endure transportation, to go on a journey, is one that builds up over time. It is not something that is necessarily present in people. It's something that is built up. And you can see that in cultures or groups where people, they don't really go anywhere. And we have the Israelites here that they've been hanging out in Egypt as slaves. So they probably worked from morning till night, and then they went to the dorms or the houses or whatever, would sleep, and then they would rinse and repeat day after day, and they would never really travel or go anywhere too far. And here we are now on this massive journey, and it's being a little bit too much for everyone, and they're having a rough time, a hard time, as we'll see. They didn't have all the fast food that we have. They didn't have the hotels and the motels. So the food wasn't good. The lodgings weren't good. They were out in the boonies, out in the wilderness on this difficult journey with no experience of long travel beforehand. Numbers 11:1. And the people grumbled and deplored their hardship, which was evil in the ears of the Lord. And when the Lord heard it, his anger was kindled, and the fire of the Lord burned among them and devoured those in the outlying parts of the camp. A couple chapters ago, we saw that it was the second year, the second Passover celebration. We followed that up with some chapters dealing with the marching orders and them actually beginning their journey after the Mount Sinai event. And they're still in the area of Mount Sinai, but they're soldiering on. And the morale is at rock bottom here, and the people are grumbling and complaining. And the Lord, he doesn't want to hear it anymore. He's gone through a lot to get them where they are, and they're ungrateful, and they are complaining. This was a problem then, this is a problem later, and it is a problem now. It is so easy to be lacking in faith and understanding of what God's plan is. I mean, he's got it figured out. He knows what's going to happen. He wrote about it in his books. We see the future before it happens. But the flesh is weak. The other thing you could kind of hold against the Israelites is that they have witnessed quite a few miracles before they even left Egypt. And then they had the crossing of the sea, and there was a very visible miracle there. We had the Lord leading them as the cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night. We have the tablets being made and being brought down. They have all these different things that they saw and experienced, but they're still lacking in faith. Anyway, this really offended the Lord, and we have a judgment being placed upon the people. We have this fire that is consuming those on the outskirts. So the fire is on the outside, maybe it's moving its way inwards. Similar to when you have a forest fire beside a city, that the houses on the outside, they get consumed first as the fire makes its way towards the center. Numbers 11:2. The people cried to Moses, and when Moses prayed to the Lord, the fire subsided. We have this brutal judgment of fire, and I wonder if it was something like you just look off into the distance and there's like a wall of flame just creeping towards them, and they're just terrified. Now, I have heard that the judgments before the law was given were much more mild, but now that the law is given, the Israelites are held to a higher standard, so the judgments are proportionally more harsh as well. I don't know if there's anything to that or not, but this is certainly a very severe judgment. And they're going to Moses to try to get him to figure something out, and Moses is praying to the Lord to let these fires subside, and they do. Numbers 11:3. He called the name of the place Taberah, burning, because the fire of the Lord burned among them. So this fire, this judgment was significant enough that the place was named after it. Now, something that I've noticed as we made our way through the Old Testament to this point is that there's a lot of places that get named based on events that have occurred. Abraham named a lot of stuff depending on his mood or whatever the circumstance were. So this trend is continuing here in this place. Probably serves as a memorial to those who died in this particular firestorm. Numbers 11:4. And the mixed multitude among them, the rabble who followed Israel from Egypt, began to lust greatly for familiar and dainty food. And the Israelites wept again and said, "Who will give us meat to eat?" So they have left Egypt, and along the way there was a shortage of food, and the Lord provided manna, which was some kind of like flour that came from heaven, and they were making cakes or bread out of it, and that was what they were eating. So not a very diverse meal. I mean, even if it was the best tasting thing ever, which it very well could have been, on its own, it was probably boring after a while, after eating the same thing for months on end. There's only so many ways that you can cook the manna. So they're lusting after the old foods of Egypt, the stuff that they had regularly down there. And there was a much more diverse and varied types of food. I'm sure there's also an aspect of nostalgia to it. The foods that they had when they were growing up. I guess we have a great variety of ages of people here, but growing up on a particular food and then not having it kind of sucks. And so they want to have that experience again of that old Egyptian food. Numbers 11:5. We remember the fish we ate freely in Egypt and without cost, the cucumbers, melons, leeks, onions, and garlic. 11:6. But now our soul, our strength, is dried up. There is nothing at all in the way of food to be seen but this manna. Egypt was the breadbasket of the world in those days, and they had a variety of products, as we see here in this list of products. There's sweet things, there's savory things, we have these different fishes. It was probably pretty good food in Egypt, probably the best in the world. And they've left that, and now they consume manna. For they're out in the wilderness, so there's not exactly a whole lot of other things that they can go forage and consume. Numbers 11:7. The manna was like coriander seed, and its appearance was like that of beldium, perhaps a precious stone. 11:8. The people went about and gathered it, and ground it in mills, or beat it in mortars, and boiled it in pots, and made cakes of it, and it tasted like cakes baked with fresh oil. 11:9. And when the dew fell on the camp in the night, the manna fell with it. So here we have some more stuff on the manna. And it sounds like a pretty interesting substance. And I'm sure they were so used to it that they didn't really see it as being special anymore. I'm sure the first couple times when they were starving to have the manna, to have their bellies full, was probably tremendous. But the magic of the manna wore off over time. Magic in the sense of special, not magic as in occult arts. I've always found the manna stuff quite interesting. This supernatural flower type stuff that comes every day, and it spoils the same day. I guess it would be the next day it would go bad or whatever. Except for on the weekend, when on the Sabbath day, well, I guess the day before the Sabbath day, they pick more of it up then, and it doesn't spoil on the Sabbath, but it will spoil on the following day. So that one day a week, it lasts twice as long, and that's kind of interesting. Numbers 11:10. And Moses heard the people weeping throughout their families, every man at the door of his tent, and the anger of the Lord blazed hotly, and in the eyes of Moses it was evil. For all intensive purposes, Moses is acting as a middleman between the Lord and the people of Israel. The people of Israel, when they have an issue, they have a problem, they go to Moses, and then Moses goes to the Lord on their behalf to find a solution. And when the Lord wants to communicate something to the people of Israel, he tells Moses, then Moses tells the people. And here Moses sees the weeping of the people. He sees the sadness of the people. And he also sees the anger of the Lord. So he is caught between a rock and a hard place. We just saw this terrible judgment with this fire and this lust for food here, and the Lord's not happy, and the people are sad and depressed, and it's just escalating as a situation. Numbers 11:11. And Moses said to the Lord, "Why have you dealt ill with your servants? And why have I not found favor in your sight, that you lay the burden of all this people on me?" 11:12. Have I conceived all this people? Have I brought them forth, that you should say to me, "Carry them in your bosom," as a nursing father carries the suckling child, to the land which you swore to their fathers to give them? Moses cares deeply of the people of Israel, and he cares deeply about the Lord. So he is taking on this responsibility. In some ways, he is making more out of it than he probably should. It's not Moses that is getting the people to the promised land, but the Lord. The Lord is the one that is leading them. But Moses is being involved personally, and this is really getting to him. And this burden is becoming too great. And here we see a comparison between a child and a parent, that it is like he is looking after children by looking after the Israelites in the way that they are acting right now. Numbers 11:13. Where should I get meat to give to all these people? For they weep before me and say, "Give us meat that we may eat." 11:14. I am not able to carry all these people alone, because the burden is too heavy for me. The people are continuing their murmuring, and they are going on, and they want meat. They want something to go with their manna bread. And Moses is wondering, where could we possibly get meat for these people? And he is just being overwhelmed, way too much on his plate, and he needs help. Numbers 11:15. And if this is the way you deal with me, kill me, I pray you, at once, and be granting me a favor, and let me not see my wretchedness in the failure of all my efforts. Moses has been pushed to the point that he is just looking for a way out. He is asking the Lord to maybe just finish him off so he doesn't have to see his weakness in his own ways, and how much he is wavering in his convictions by the murmurings of this people. It is wearing him down, and it is taking him to a place that he does not want to be in. Numbers 11:16. And the Lord said to Moses, "Gather for me 70 men of the elders of Israel, whom you know to be the elders of the people, and officers over them, and bring them to the tent of meeting, and let them stand there with you." The Lord has answered Moses, and he is going to provide a solution. Here we have this calling for 70 individuals, the elders, to be support. Numbers 11:17. And I will come down and talk with you there, and I will take of the Spirit which is upon you, and will put it upon them, and they shall bear the burden of the people with you, so that you may not have to bear it yourself alone. A method in which the burden is divided by a group rather than an individual to make it much more manageable. Of course, 70, it's got a 7 in there. There's probably some Bible number stuff going on there. I think there was the original translation of the Bible was the Septuagint. I think that was 70 translators. And that was the translation of the Bible from Hebrew into Greek. And when Jesus and some of the other writers in the New Testament, they quote the scriptures, it's often the Septuagint version that they translate from. So it is kind of a big deal. So I guess this 70 elders kind of started like a trend of the 70 to go forward, and for that to be a pattern that is recurring throughout time. Numbers 11:18. And say to the people, consecrate yourselves for tomorrow, and you shall eat meat, for you have wept in the hearing of the Lord, saying, who will give us meat to eat? For it was well with us in Egypt. Therefore the Lord will give you meat, and you shall eat. 11:19. You shall not eat 1 day, or 2, or 5, or 10, or 20 days. 11:20. But a whole month, until you are satisfied, and vomit it up violently, and it comes out of your nostrils, and is disgusting to you, because you have rejected and despised the Lord, who is among you, and have wept before him, saying, why did we come out of Egypt? So here we go. We have the promise of the meat, and there's going to be so much of it that they're going to be eating it for days upon days for the entire month and throwing it up because they're eating too much of it. But the end of that there, it doesn't sound very friendly and nice and pleasant. It sounds like this is going to be a judgment for the way that they have been acting. It's almost like they're asking for meat, and the Lord goes, you want meat? I'll give you meat. And he is going to send, I guess we just keep reading. Numbers 11:21. But Moses said, the people among whom I am are 600,000 footmen, besides all the women and children. And you have said, I will give them meat, that they may eat a whole month. Moses, not being accustomed to the ways of God in his entirety, he is still bound by conventional reason of what he can see and experience around him, that can't really fathom how great of a miracle the Lord can truly perform. And he is reminding the Lord of just how many people there are, and to have enough meat to stuff them for a month, like that would be a tremendous amount. So Moses is just kind of wondering what's going on. This is similar to what we see in the New Testament with the feeding of the 5,000. Jesus takes 2 little fish and a couple loaves of bread, or 5 loaves of bread, and he divides them up and feeds 5,000 people with them. And this was not that everybody got an incredibly small amount, that they ate enough that they were stuffed. So this is a similar vibe to that. Really, a lot of the things that we have seen here in the Old Testament, it's like there's echoes of them in the future. It's pretty neat to see, really. But as a mild, no spoilers version of reading the Bible, we're not going to go too crazy and too deep in those because, we won't get anywhere. So, Numbers 11:22. Shall flocks and herds be killed to suffice them? Or shall all the fish of the sea be collected to satisfy them? Moses is using his earthly mind and trying to think of ways that the Lord could possibly feed this amount of people. Never mind that they've had manna raining down from the sky for the last, not quite 2 years, but, right? I mean, something like that didn't used to exist, and God provided that. So Moses is trying to think of earthly solutions here. He's like, what about the fish of the sea? Or maybe they slaughter all the herds, all the animals they brought with them, and maybe there'll be a bunch of meat that way. He just can't really see a method for this, and he needs God to explain what his solution is going to be. Numbers 11:23. The Lord said to Moses, has the Lord's hand, his ability and power, become short, thwarted, and inadequate? You shall see now whether my word shall come to pass for you or not. This is just one of those great all-around verses in the Bible where God has the power, Moses is doubting, and God is reaffirming, who he is. and that he has the ability to provide a solution to this. I do like as well that he doesn't tell him exactly what he's going to do or what the full plan is. God likes to set things up and make them awesome and cool and exciting. So he often doesn't explain things entirely beforehand. It would be like a comedian telling a joke but messing up the punchline. God doesn't do that. He sets everything up perfectly so that it has the most impact. So this will really blow the socks off Moses when he sees this miracle that the Lord is going to perform. Numbers 11:24. So Moses went out and told the people the words of the Lord, and he gathered 70 men of the elders of the people and set them round about the tent. That was enough for Moses, and Moses was obedient, and he collected these 70 elders, the old men, and brings them to the area of the tent of meeting. Numbers 11:25. And the Lord came down in the cloud and spoke to him, and took of the Spirit that was upon him, and put it upon the 70 elders. And when the Spirit rested upon them, they prophesied, sounding forth the praises of God, and declaring his will. Then they did so no more. So God is fulfilling what he said he was going to do. He has given this Spirit and divided it amongst these 70 men, and they're prophesying. So maybe they're predicting the future, maybe they're just proclaiming words that the Lord has placed on their hearts. And it's probably a tremendous event. The vibe of this feels very similar to the Pentecost event, when the Holy Spirit is being poured out in the New Testament, and we have all these people receiving these divine blessings and holy gifts, and people speaking in tongues and things, tongues being other languages. So you got this guy that only speaks Greek and suddenly speaks some sort of Assyrian language or something. Not gibberish as some people like to do. Numbers 11:26. But there remained 2 men in the camp named Eldad and Medad. The Spirit rested upon them, and they were of those who were selected and listed. Yet they did not go out to the tent as told to do, but they prophesied in the camp. So we got 2 fellas here that didn't make it there. Maybe they were ceremonially unclean and were unable to go to the tabernacle, or maybe they missed the memo, or whatever the circumstances were. They didn't go there, but the Spirit still came to them. So here they were in the middle of the camp prophesying to the Lord. And I'm sure to the people it probably seemed pretty crazy seeing these 2 old geezers here. I mean, you had to be an elder to be an elder. So, I don't know, it was probably quite the event. Probably spooked some people. Numbers 11:27. And a young man ran to Moses and said, Eldad and Medad are prophesying, sounding forth the praises of God and declaring his will in the camp. I can just picture this scenario here. You got this old man, he gets up and he starts prophesying, and this young man's there, he witnesses this, and he's just wondering what's going on. And the things this guy's saying are probably absolutely incredible, mind-blowing things. And he's running to Moses to tell him what's going on, to explain this situation. Numbers 11:28. Joshua, son of Nun, the minister of Moses, one of his chosen men, said, My Lord, Moses, forbid them. This is quite a common thing, that people that are filled with the Spirit and they're being driven to do certain things, it freaks people out. And we have this person here, this Joshua, seeing this event transpire, and he wants to forbid this man from speaking, even though he is being possessed by the Spirit. The Spirit is in him, and he is saying the things of God. In the New Testament, we see a lot of this kind of idea of almost quenching that spirit, which is something you're not really supposed to do. And we'll see what Moses has to say about this. Numbers 11:29. But Moses said to him, "Are you envious or jealous for my sake? Would that all the Lord's people were prophets, and that the Lord would put his spirit upon them." Moses has a great answer here, and he points out the man's weakness to himself as to why he would want to forbid it, and how good it would be if everyone was filled with the Spirit. Really makes me think about how much Moses knew about God's plan and what his plan was for the future and the salvation of the planet and how it was provided to everybody if they chose to accept it, because that's exactly what we see in the New Testament. So I don't know, it's pretty neat. Numbers 11:30. And Moses went back to the camp, he and the elders of Israel. 11:31. And there went forth a wind from the Lord, and brought quails from the sea, and let them fall. So they flew low beside the camp, about a day's journey on the side, and on the other side all around the camp, about 2 cubits above the ground. So now that Moses has his 70 elders to help him out, they're returning back to the camp from the tabernacle. And there's just all these birds, a ridiculous amount of birds. And they're flying in the perfect height for their own capture. They're flying close to the ground in a convenient location in large numbers. So this is just absolutely ridiculous. But it is what God said he was going to do. He was going to provide them meat. And here we have a swarm of these quail birds. Numbers 11:32. And the people rose all that day, and all night, and all the next day, and caught and gathered the quails. He who gathered least gathered 10 homers, and they spread them out for themselves round about the camp to cure them by drying. So quails are pretty small birds. They're a lot smaller than chickens. Couple pounds in weight, couple kilograms in weight, not very big birds at all. A homer is not a measure of weight, but a measurement of volume. So about 6 bushels are 220 liters. So like 2,000 birds for the person that caught the least amount of them. So that is absolutely ridiculous. Numbers 11:33. While the meat was yet between their teeth, before it was consumed, the anger of the Lord was kindled against the people, and the Lord smote them with a great plague. The people of Israel are unaccustomed to eating meat. They haven't had meat in a very long time. So now that they have the opportunity to, they are gorging out like crazy. But it's not going to end well. There is a great plague. Now this could be some natural thing that because they haven't had meat in so long and they're eating an absurd amount of quail, that they're getting some sort of digestive problem or something, and maybe food poisoning or some sort of bacterium, and it's making a lot of them get sick or die, and that is a thing. Or it could be some other supernatural plague that God placed on them to thin out the numbers a little bit due to their unbelief and murmuring and just all the disrespect that they've had recently. And they wanted the things of the world, and the Lord gave them the things of the world, and the things of the world bring death. Numbers 11:34. That place was called Kiberoth Hatavah, the graves of serious desire, because there they buried the people who lusted, whose physical appetite caused them to sin. 11:35. The Israelites journeyed from Kiberoth Hatavah to Hazeroth, where they remained. So there was a lot of death and there was a lot of sickness after this event with the quail. So much so that they named the place after the event that took place. But the wilderness wandering must continue.